This is Midnight Alchemy with your host Jason Allen on the Left Coast Media Network. And now here's Jason.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are. This is Midnight Alchemy, and I am the dude on the microphone, Jason Allen. Hello there. It is good to be back here and give you another exciting episode. Hey, a little bit later, we got June Lundgren, Demon Seer, coming on, and that shall be fun. But first, we need the news. Dateline, Yorkshire, England. Ghost hunters' terror as everything went wrong during investigation into escaped patient. Andrew Pollard, aka the Yorkshire Ghost Guy, was forced to give up a paranormal investigation at Ewley Reservoir, Rotherham, this week, before finding himself marooned at the scene. A ghost hunter had a night to forget during a solo paranormal investigation when everything went wrong, including a malfunctioning car when he tried to flee. Andrew Pollard, known as the Yorkshire Ghost Guy, recently visited Ewley Reservoir in Rotherham, said to be haunted by the specter of an escaped patient from a nearby asylum in the 1900s. The lore suggests the unknown patient fell from the bridge over an expanse of water and drowned, with its ghost said to patrol the area. The reservoir has become an area of interest for those investigating the paranormal, and Andrew visited alone early this week. Bad idea. However, from the off-go, he sensed that something was amiss with the visit before things later took a bizarre turn. After several attempts to contact something from across the void, he eventually got too creeped out and tried to leave, but there was a hitch. I felt uneasy from the start. I think in hindsight, it's probably a lesson in how fear can get the better of you. I know a couple of fellow paranormal enthusiasts who had been there, and they said they'd heard and sounded like someone running through water, a splashing sound. The tale of the escaped mental patient was at the forefront of my mind. When he got back to his usually reliable car, however, he found it had bizarrely died on him and refused to start. Luckily, he had a jump starter power pack in the motor and managed to get it going, with no clue as why it had previously refused to start. Then he screamed into the night, "I want to go home." How profound. I only uploaded the video because afterwards I found it funny, not my finest hour. I came across like a cross between Frank Spencer and Scrappy Doo. Oh, damn, I love a good Scrappy reference. That was the news. And so now, let's do June Lundgren. June Lundgren is a psychic medium, radio TV personality, paranormal investigator with ghosts and girls. And, one of my favorites, she's a demon seer, an animal communicator, and a consultant and an author. And let me add just one thing at the end. She is an all-around good person. Hello, June.
Hey there, how are you? Long time no see.
Right, it's been a while, so we got a lot of catching up to do tonight here.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be one fantastic interview.
Yeah, it should be good. It's always fun with you.
Oh yeah. Hey, June, let's start at the very beginning in case some people have, don't know the June Lundgren story. They've been hiding under a rock or whatever. Let's start from the beginning and tell us about June Lundgren.
Well, since I was born, I've always been able to connect with the other side. I was raised by my maternal grandmother for the first 5 years, and she taught me everything that she knew. And she knew that I could communicate with animals right away because the cats and dogs would all, be under my crib, and they would be cocking their heads like they were listening to the conversation, so she knew that. And as I grew older, she knew that there was a family prophecy that said there would be a female child born that would be able to communicate, see demons in their true form, and kill them. And my grandmother knew the minute she saw me that I was the one the prophecy from the 14th century was about. So I kind of unfortunately, I went to live with my mother after that, and it wasn't a good thing because she didn't want me to use my abilities or anything like that. So I left for the military when I was 17, and I helped a lot of people when I was in there, and I got out and came home. Yeah, this was all before the advent of the internet.
Interwebs.
Yeah, interwebs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I've been out of the closet, so to speak, since 1986, when I died and went to the other side. And I was riding my motorcycle, and some woman ran a red light and trashed me and my bike. So I was clinically dead for 2 minutes.
Mm.
And when I was on the other side, Michael the Archangel was there, and my grandparents were there. And Michael said, "You need to understand who and what you are. The reason you're here is to understand." And I just said, it's just me. And he's like, no, we're not talking about the physical body. We're talking about your soul. He says, your soul belongs to Ariel, the Archangel. She's a demon slayer. He says, your job in this lifetime, as it has been in your others, is to hunt down and kill the demons. And by doing that, you help mankind. So I've been doing that since 86.
Yeah, what a solemn and a lot of weight to put on your shoulders. I mean, when you're told, hey, by by Archangel Michael, you need you have a purpose. You need to
Yeah. I'm like, you couldn't give me some airy fairy stuff, man. You got to give me the nasty shit.
right. Come on, man.
And he's like, well, that's what Ariel is. She's a demon slayer. So, your body was created to hold the soul of Ariel, the Archangel.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's like, I'm like, never even heard of her, right? So I'm looking online, and I'm like, the only things you can find about her was that she's one of the 5 that guard the throne of God.
Yeah.
And she is, her name means Lion of God. And she's a defender of heaven. But that's all I could find. But, because I had her within me, but there wasn't that connection to where I interacted with her like on a regular basis. So Michael did what he called the merge, so that my soul consciousness, her consciousness, and my physical consciousness were bound together, so that I can hear what she hears, see through her eyes.
Wow.
And vice versa. So when I look at the human world, I see energy that everything is created out of. I don't see the physical car or the physical person. I see the energy that created it, that's made up of it.
Oh man.
So it's quite different. And I always know that a demon's coming sometimes years ahead of time. It's just a matter of waiting for the other shoe to drop. You just acknowledge that it's coming, that there's something that's going to happen that's huge, and you move on. Because if you dwell on it, it'll make you crazy. So I don't do that.
Have you ever dealt with possession?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did an exorcism. My first exorcism was kind of interesting. It was on a woman with 11 entities within her.
Oh boy, Legion, I guess, huh?
Yeah, well, it's quite a few of them. But it's like, I was on Clyde Lewis's Ground Zero.
Yeah.
And he did a special on me, and it was called, Demon Seer. It was a 4-hour special, and I had like 250 emails in one night. It's like ridiculous. And one of them was a woman that said that she, was possessed. And you meet all kinds. So it's like, okay, send me a picture. So if you send me a picture, I can connect with the individual, know what's there and what's not there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh crap, yeah, she's got them there. She's got them there. Okay, we got to do this.
Are you sure it was verbatim? Oh crap, or maybe something a little stronger?
Yeah, it was probably something a little stronger, but it doesn't matter. It's you do the job.
Yeah.
And God said, you need to have. I have, my friend Aaron Collins. He's a ordained minister, and they said, God says you need to bring him with you. he fears the dark ones, and you cannot serve me and fear the dark ones.
Yeah.
So basically, it was a trial by fire for him. And my friend Wendy, the other half of Ghosts and Girls Paranormal.
Mhm.
And I knocked on the door, opened the door. She opened the door, and it wasn't her in control at that time. It was a demon. Her eyes were black, and
Right.
you know, and she's like, she told me in Aramaic, "Get out of here, bitch," and slammed the door. My friends are looking at me like, "What?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." So I knock on the door again. And this time, she's in control for the moment.
Yeah.
So we went inside, and usually it takes me just a few minutes to do a removal. But this one took almost 3 hours because I got down to the last demon to be removed. And I can look into their mind and find out why they're there, what attracted them, and what they've been doing.
Sure.
So I looked into its mind, and I found that it had been given a job to do by Lucifer, but it just blew him off and didn't bother to do it. So
Yeah.
it was literally in hiding from him.
Man, that's
So I told it, I said, "You can go home if you want to." I said, if you're truly repentant, you can go home, you can go to the light. And it said, "I can really go home." And I said, "Yes, you can." I said, "I'll ask Jesus to come." So my friends are standing in front of me, and the woman is seated in a chair, in front of me.
Yeah.
And there's this huge arm made of pure white light that comes out, and with a hand, and it stretches towards the woman and the demon. And the demon was tempted to take it, but then at the last minute, it retreated back inside of her, and it said, "No, I can't go home. I can never go home. You're lying." So Jesus withdrew his hand, and I told the demon, I said, "Okay." I said, "Lucifer, come forth." And what my friend saw was this entity that appeared suddenly at the end of the hall and walked towards us. And what they saw was, a black figure in a fedora, double-breasted suit, spats,
Yeah.
And it stopped in front of the woman and me, and it said, and he said, "Demon, come out of there. You're coming with me." And the demon's like, "No, no, no, I'm not going nowhere." And Lucifer looked at me and said, "I know you don't want me to rip the demon out of her. You don't want me to harm the woman." He said, "So I will be back for it tonight." So he turned around and walked down the hallway and disappeared. And so I told her, I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "He's going to take the last remaining one tonight." And then we left, and all of us woke up in our beds at 3 a.m. and heard Lucifer say, "It's done." So I called the woman the next day, and she's like, "I've never felt this empty in over 20 years. She says, "There's absolutely nothing inside of me." I said, "Please get counseling. You have PTSD from having these things inside of you."
Yeah, I bet.
But to this day, Aaron and Wendy, they still can't believe it. And Aaron's like, "I've always known that Jesus exists, God exists, and that the devil exists." He says, "But literally to see them in the same place at the same time," he says, "it just blows my mind." You have to laugh at what I do because it's dark. It's like I told him, I said, bet you didn't know I moved in such exalted circles, did you?"
You're right.
Get a good laugh out of it because
Yeah.
it is dark, and you have to have a sense of humor about it, or it wouldn't be a good thing.
Right. I mean, I guess if you didn't, you would probably go crazy. I mean, here you are dealing with everything you just, brought up to believe in, and read in the book and have faith, but
Yeah.
there's a little difference between having faith at a Sunday service
Yeah.
and the real deal shows up.
Right, exactly. And you can't have any doubt. In order to do what I do, you can't, you'd have to have an archangel inside of you.
Yeah.
B, you can't have any doubts in what you're doing, in the process, in God, in yourself, or you're screwed.
Yeah.
You can't do it because you'll never get the demon out.
Right.
And I asked Michael one time, I said, "Why does it take the Catholic priests so long to remove a demon? Sometimes it takes years.
Yeah.
And he says, because they have doubt.
Yeah.
And that's because the demon looks into your mind, because they can pick out, they know what you're afraid of. They know, if you have doubts or anything like that. They can't get inside mine, but most people's mind, they get inside. So
yeah. Before I met my wife, I was actually in seminary to become a Catholic priest. And I was lucky enough to talk to an official exorcist of the Vatican. His name was Father Malachi Martin. And after my, quote unquote ordination, I was supposed to learn some of that stuff. And, obviously I met my wife and that
got a little sidetracked there.
Right. Yeah. But very recently, I've been working at it and I just got ordained.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know what I'm gonna do about that, because there's just been I don't know, a nudge or an urge or something telling me that, hey, there's a purpose for you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's been so long since I sat in a seminary chair. It scared me a little bit. I'm older and somehow I feel a little weaker, than the young virile 20s Jason, right? But still, I feel that sort of, it's a kind of a tug.
It's a calling. It's something that's like, how many people you would want to do what I do? Nobody in their right mind. I mean, it's a scary thing for most people.
Right.
It's like, I didn't choose it. It was all about Ariel and what her job for God.
Right.
So you don't question, you just do it.
Just do it, right? I mean, at this point, I'm like Moses when he's asked to go into Egypt, right? It's like, hey, going, man.
It's like, yeah, are me there? Are you out of your mind?
Right. But I don't know. So I guess it's something to really ponder on and explore.
Yeah,
and maybe I'll talk to you, off recording here a little bit about it more.
Yeah, it's people think that I do some sort of a ceremony or something like that, like they do, like the Catholic priest. Hell no. I just full on face it and just kill it.
Right.
I don't waste no time. People say, "Oh, don't you ever talk to them?" I'm like, "Why? They got nothing to say that I want to hear."
Right.
Really, they don't. It's like, nothing I haven't heard before.
Yeah.
It's like, I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah. When I was talking to Father Malachi, of course, I had all those millions of questions,
Oh, yeah.
about it. And one of the things that really, I mean, stuck with me even to today was he said, Jason, every time I do this, I feel like I'm losing a little piece of my soul.
Yeah. If you don't, and they do. Have you ever heard of exorcist that lives a long and happy life without any kind of health issues or anything else?
Right.
No, because it takes a toll on the body, the mind, and the spirit. I'm lucky enough to have an archangel inside of me, so I don't feel any of that. I don't suffer from any of that.
Right.
It's just, that's just the way like she tells me, like she's told me for time and again, I protect the body.
Right.
Oh,
that's June. All I gotta say is wow. Because I've got 1,026,000,026 questions for you. So buckle up here.
Okay.
You explained a little bit about what Lucifer looked like. Now, is that his true form or just something he decided to show up?
No, this is what he projects into the mind of Aaron and Wendy. I see him in his true form. He can't hide that from me.
Yeah.
They're about 7. They kind of look like, in a way, they have a resemblance to an archangel. They're 7 feet tall, have a 12-foot wingspan, but that's where the similarities end, because they're made of shades of gray and black. They have no facial features whatsoever except eyes. And what would pass for hair would be just like, I don't know, like porcupine quill type things, you know.
Sure.
And the eyes are what gets you. If you see them as I see them, and you look into the eyes, there's every evil in the world and some that you could never imagine. It's a thing that nightmares are made of. I've been seeing them this way since I was 5.
Yeah.
So I've gotten used to it. I don't pay no attention.
Right.
But there's been a couple people that have wanted to see what I see, and I can let them see what I see. And Aaron was one of them, and he didn't like it. Zach Baggins was another one. You know, it's like people just do not want to see what I see because they can't handle seeing them in their true form.
Right. Right.
And it's not for everyone.
Right. No, I mean, it makes perfect sense that you'd have to have an archangel in you, because I mean, when you come up against that true evil and that true spirit-based entity, I mean, it boggles the mind, because your mind can't really process in real time, right?
Yeah, the human mind it would just be too hard for them to grasp. I mean, you know, the people that I've let see, you know, there's one more a friend of mine that was a medium. They don't want to see it again. They don't ever want to see it again.
Gotcha.
You know, it's like, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Another question is Satan and Lucifer the same thing, or are they two distinct different entities?
See that each demon has a light name and a dark name. Okay. And I prefer to call him Lucifer. That's his light name. It means the shining one. Yeah. I don't call him Satan. I mean, to me, that's very disrespectful and very derogatory. Mm-hmm. And Satan and I get along fine, Lucifer, because I have respect for him, but he has a big respect for me because of Ariel and the Legion of Light. You know, Legion is made up of Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Ariel. And so, you know, he has that respect. He knows better, because he knows that Ariel could take him out without even a second thought.
Wow.
She wouldn't blink at going down there and taking him out.
Right.
I have a friend that lives in Glasgow, Scotland, and he has the archangel Hanel within him. And Lucifer and Hanel were best friends before the war between heaven and hell. Yeah. So he goes periodically and visits Hanel, and he says he has respect for Hanel because he stood up for what he believed in, and he can't fault him for that. But one time he asked him, he asked Lucifer, he says, "What do you think of Anti-Ariel?" He always calls me Anti-Ariel. And he says, and his response was, respect the assassin.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Again, describe Michael to me, because like the archangels, you know, Michael and Gabriel, you know, that have been the most known through the written word.
They're the ones that form the Legion of Light, and they were formed long before the war between heaven and hell. And it's funny, because my friends are always saying, Michael's got blonde hair, and I'm like, no, he doesn't have blonde hair. He's 7 feet tall. You know, he has ruggedly classical features. Mm-hmm. He's of course, there's, you know, because he gives you how he wants you to see him, perceive him. But he's got like long brown hair. It's about shoulder length, and he's got a dry sense of humor.
Yeah.
And he believes in keeping the rules and regs up there of heaven, but he's not above bending the rules from time to time. Yeah. Raphael is a lot like Ariel in the way. Ariel is like hair trigger. I mean, she'd just as soon kill a demon as look at it, or anybody else that summons a demon as well. Yeah. So, but Raphael's got black hair, and he's more somber, and he's not classically handsome, but he's got a face full of character, and he doesn't say as much, but if he has something to say, you better listen. You know. Yeah. Gabe, on the other hand, is a real winner. He's going to hit me for that, but I would say he's kind of a ladies' man, you know, a man about town.
Right, right.
Because he's a smooth talker.
Excellent.
And but they all have this affinity for the animals. They love the animals above everything.
Yeah.
And Ariel, of course, she's the same. She's 7 feet tall. She has dark red hair, and it's down past her waist, and her eyes are a blue-green, brilliant blue-green,
Yeah.
and she looks fierce. I have a friend that lives in England, and her husband had just died, young, 59 years old, and she
Wow.
was in the hospital when he died.
Yeah.
And he died suddenly from a heart attack. And she spoke to me and said, "Can you bring John here to me? Can Ariel bring him?"
Yeah.
And so I sent Ariel to bring her husband to her in the hospital. And she said she woke up and there they were. She said, if I didn't know that she was friendly, he says, she said, I would think she looks so fierce
Yeah.
and such a warrior that I would be scared. Said, but I know differently.
Yeah.
And Ariel brought her husband to her, and she could actually see and feel her husband.
Wow.
Physically.
Yeah. That is something. And that's always something that I guess the mainstream people out there have such a different view of angels, right? They always see the cherubs, and that sort of stuff. But I mean, if you read any part of the Old Testament, there are some, that
most of them are fierce. Most of
Yeah.
them are, just don't mess with them,
right.
especially the archangels, because they don't put up with anything,
Right. That's
And cherubims, people think of them as like little Cupid things,
right. Right.
But they kind of look like that almost.
Mhm.
But it's like having nitroglycerin in a vial. They're very powerful,
Yeah.
very powerful. You wouldn't think so by looking at them because they look all innocent and cute. But don't piss them off, man. You'll be sorry.
Sheep and wool
Yeah.
sheep clothing.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, the angelic realm has always fascinated with me. I of course from what I've read and studied and everything, there's still a lot of fuzziness, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Paul said it best: looking through a glass darkly.
yeah.
And so I'm so interested in not only the angels, but of course the demons, not because I'm a bad bet, but just
Right.
out of
But
curiosity.
the thing is that the angelic realm is, people think, oh, we're floating around on clouds and we're playing the harp. No, that's not how it is.
Right.
You give in. When I died and went to the other side, I died when I was a baby, but I don't remember that part. But when I came back, when I went over there, it's like the first thing you notice is that I could hear every single soul in existence
Yeah.
in the light realm. And above all that was God.
Yeah.
And you could feel the connection between the individual souls and God. It's like it's overall there. It's almost overwhelming.
Yeah.
And you feel the love and the connection and the peace. But
Yeah.
which is kind of different than Ariel, but whatever. But
Yeah.
it's something that you can't explain, and because the human mind has to process it
Yep.
and see it as
Yeah.
something that it can wrap its mind around. So each person will probably see it a little bit differently, but what I saw was just like a cloud bank, and then Michael was there, and he opened. I told him, I said, okay, if this is before he told me who I was, I asked him, I said, well, heaven exists, what about hell? And he walked over and he waved his arm, and a piece of the cloud floor opened, and there was this black pit. And there were horrible screams coming out of it. People, it looked like they were trying to reach up and ask for help. And then he closed it. I said, okay, I get it. Yeah, okay. It exists too. There we go.
Right.
But once he says, you have to understand about who you are. So he touched my forehead, and I turned into her and relived all of these 130 lives that I lived before this.
Wow.
Back to the original life.
Yeah.
She was sent back to live physical world lives because basically she had no compassion for mankind. She had no care, no compassion. In 1198 AD, she was, a woman cried out for help to God because of a demon. And God sent Ariel down. And Ariel gets there and, she knows this woman summoned the demon. I mean, come on. So she says, she told the woman, you seek help from us when you're the one who summoned the demon. And then she reached into her and she ripped the demon out of her. Well, when she did that, the body died, the physical body died, and the soul was released.
Yeah.
But God was mad because this wasn't the first time this happened. And he says, you have no compassion for mankind. You have no love for mankind. He says, you've been up here too long. So he says, you will go back and you will live lives, physical world lives, until you learn to have compassion. Well, she's pretty stubborn. This is life number 131. So, I think she's a bit on the stubborn side, but she's finally learned. And it's what God said. He says, this is your last lifetime.
Yeah.
He says, I want you to put all of the knowledge that you've accumulated in all of these lifetimes, as well as from, heaven and hell. And I want you to put them in a volume of books so that people can read about it, people can understand it better.
Right. Yeah.
So the first one came out last March, Demon Seer, The Awakening.
Yeah.
That was the first one. There's going to be 8 volumes, but that was the first one. And the next one's about, heaven and how people have this misconception that, I hear people time and again say, well, Michael knows how I feel or Gabriel knows how I feel. I'm like, no, they don't. I said, they know the concept of love. They know the concept of pain, of, anger, depression. I said, but they haven't had a physical body in billions of years. I said, you have to stop and think about that. It's a long time since they've been physical. And that's why they count on Ariel, because every time she returns, she basically lets them see what she has experienced and felt in the physical world, so that she connects with them so that they can understand mankind more.
Right. I mean, wasn't that what the war in heaven was about? I mean, not wanting to bow down to human, no compassion, no feeling for them. These people are, how dare you? These people are obsolete. Look,
What started even the Catholic Church don't know what started the war between heaven and hell. And I told them, I tell people it's quite simple, really. I mean, Lucifer and his followers were of the light at one time, and they traveled. We all had physical bodies on another planet in another galaxy. I'm going to say Star Wars, far, far away. And God found us, and he helped us evolve. He helped us to get rid of war and famine and disease. And our whole pursuit was in the pursuit of knowledge. And so we all evolved until we all became pure energy. And we traveled as a group and saw everything there was to see. We saw stars being created. We saw planets burn out, supernovas, and different, beings being created, and and all these different planets with all of these sentient beings on it. And then one day, the group said, we're kind of tired of this. We've seen everything we can see. We've done everything we can do. So we'd like to have physical bodies again. And I would say about 80% of the souls said, that we want to have no physical love again. We want to have children. We want to do this. And Lucifer and his followers said, no way. It's not happening. We do not want to be subject to a physical shell, to pain and disease, growing old. So that's what started the war. It gave him the perfect excuse to raise up against God and the Legion. But the thing is, God knew about it long. He knew it was just a matter of time. Not if, but when he would do it. So that's why he created the Legion of Light and the warrior angels, so that when it happened, he would be ready. And he was. And Michael disarmed Lucifer, and Ariel disarmed his son. And God said, "You can't live among us anymore." He said, "You can't be in the light."
Yeah.
So he opened up a rift into a dark room, and he put them in there and said, "This is where you'll exist from now on. This is your kingdom." And so they've existed there for a long time, but they can never return to the light on their own. They just can't do it. But but they've figured out ways to get into the physical world.
Yeah.
And they do it quite easily, especially when humans, summon them and do things to bring them in.
That's this blows my mind. I love it because I get billions of questions, and one of the things another thing I talked with Father Malachi was about, of course hey, what's hell like? What's this? What's that? And he really kind of blew my mind a little bit, because he was like, people think that it's just like endless fire pit and everything like that, and he's like, hell is the total absence of God.
Yeah, well, yeah, in one way, yes.
Yeah,
it is a total absence of God in one way only, because when God put them all into this dark realm of existence, Azrael said, "Listen, what if there's one that wants to repent and wants to come home? How will we ever know if there's not somebody there to wait for it?"
Yeah.
So God had given him the okay to reside in the dark realm, and I would say he's had maybe about 100 takers over the billions of years that he's been there. But it's like he said, Azrael told me one time, he says, even if there's only one, at least it's one that we save.
Yeah.
He says it makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
So really, God does have a presence there. It's just that Lucifer, he resides over everything. He has a second, third, and fourth in command. The old demons are the ones that basically are the hierarchy. They're the most powerful and the smartest ones.
Yeah.
And then you get your lesser demons, who are like hormonal teenagers on steroids. They're the ones you're going to find in the physical world, because they're all about creating chaos, causing pain, causing destruction. And so they're the ones you're most likely to find down here in the physical world, besides the little creepy crawlies. They used to be called imps. I like creepy crawlies better.
Gotcha.
And then there are the harpies,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are the shadow people. All these, and then there's the watchers. The watchers are neutral. Well, they're supposed to be neutral. I've come across a couple that weren't, but for the most part, they're neutral. They just observe.
Yeah.
They're all about that,
Yeah.
But it's just, you have to take it with it. We're not worth their time and effort for the old ones to come into the physical world, unless they're given an assignment by Lucifer. If they're given an assignment by Lucifer, that's a whole different situation. They'll go, but otherwise, they won't bother.
Oh man, excellent. Hey, how tough is it to get into heaven? Obviously there's a hell, but especially nowadays with all the distractions, all the secularism, right? That just don't believe, or they turn themselves agnostic, like I don't know. And I've always contended you can't be hot or cold, man.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, it's like agnostic just means you believe in a higher power, but you don't give it a name. My husband's actually agnostic.
Okay.
But he says, my son asked him one time, he said, well, what do you think of the work mom does? Because he says, I know you don't believe like mom does. And he says, I believe in the work your mom does because I've seen the good it does. He says, and I will back your mom in everything because I believe in her.
Yeah.
Whether I believe it or not, she believes it, and I've seen the good it does.
Yeah.
So it's like, it just depends upon the individual. But it's not a trick. Man-made sin. God didn't make it. It's like God. It's man's way of putting a square peg in a round hole and cramming it in there. You know, it's like God said, you know, people, he said to me one time, we were having a nice conversation. He says, you know, people yell at me. People say, you know, how come you're punishing me? How come you're making this happen or that happen?
Right.
He says, let me tell you, he says, I don't have to do anything. You guys are pretty good at screwing up your own lives.
Ain't that true?
And I said, yeah, come to think of it, I think you're absolutely right.
Right. Yeah.
He says, I don't have to do anything at all.
Right. And really, if people just stopped and really thought about it instead of putting on blinders, I mean, God by definition cannot do anything ungodly.
Yeah, and it's like people say, you know, these Catholic Church used to say, oh, if you commit suicide, you're going to condemn your soul to hell.
Yeah.
And you have to stop and think about it. Even logically, you think, what kind of a loving, forgiving God
Yeah.
would condemn you to hell for
Right.
being in such pain, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, that you take your own life? I mean,
Right.
really. And stop and think about it. Does that make any sense? No.
No, not at all. And especially, you know, in the Middle Ages, they also, you know, if you're a baby and you weren't baptized, you're going
Right.
to hell. And that is just total nonsense.
Yeah, and it's like people think, you know, like if they have a stillborn baby or something like
Yeah.
that, or the baby dies right after birth, they're
Yeah.
like, you know, what did I do to deserve this? What did, you know, what could I have done differently? But the people don't understand that some souls come in to experience the creation process.
Oh,
Some
okay.
souls come in to experience the birthing process and then leave. It's not what you did or didn't do. It's what the soul has contracted to experience.
Yeah.
You know, if people would understand that,
Right.
then they would say, oh, okay, so this soul just wanted to come in and experience the creation process.
Sure.
Okay, I get it, you know. And this one wanted to come in and go through the birthing process and then leave.
Yeah.
I learned long ago to deal with that.
Right. So there is what they classically call reincarnation.
Oh yeah. You know, people. I think it's funny that people think you go around one time and you never come back again. It's like no, that don't happen. No, I'm
Right.
sorry, but that don't happen. You come back a time and again if you want to. God does not make you come back. It's up to the individual soul. It's free will. If the soul says, yeah, well, maybe I'll go back and become a ballerina, you know, and I've never died of cancer, so I want to experience cancer while I'm down there and die from it.
Right.
You know, it's three things. There's certain things that are set in stone: the time you come in, the time you leave, and the method in which you leave. The
Right.
rest is left up to free will.
Right. And you know, the old classic question, you know, some people have said to me, Jason, you know, how can God be a loving God and allow, you know, the suffering? You
Yeah.
know, that old question and stuff,
Right.
right? And I said, listen, yeah, suffering sucks, right?
Yeah,
Let's be
right.
honest here. Pain
Yeah.
sucks. But I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it's the full experience of humanity, the
Exactly.
good, the bad, and everything, you know.
Yeah. It's like I tell people when they come to me for a reading, said, if you only want to hear the good stuff, don't come to me, because I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right.
You know, because if I'm given information that will help you, that's bad, that will help you, like turn the corner, or turn into a different direction, a better direction, and they give me this information, I'm going to give it to you. Why should I not? You know, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't give it to you.
Right. What is Jesus like? Because you know, everyone
He's
has
cool.
their own figment of what Jesus is. Because
Yeah.
you know, us humans, we love to put things in a box, right?
Oh yeah, we do.
But you know,
But
how
Jesus is cool. His energy is very, very loving, but very wise.
Mhm.
He doesn't suffer fools gladly.
Yeah.
He doesn't like that. He understands that there are times when you have to bend the rules. And, you know, that's what he likes about Michael, is Michael will keep the rules, but there are times when it warrants bending the rules a bit,
Right.
you know, and he doesn't say, no, you can't do that, you know,
Right.
because he knows Michael's judgment. If Michael, you know, determines that this is what needs to be done,
Yeah.
he basically, him and God, they give the Legion of Light basically full power to
Mhm.
do what they want to do in the way that they dispense justice.
Sure.
and to have they train every single warrior angel. So they've trained them all, and there are billions of warrior angels.
Yeah.
And there are over 300,000 of them in the world today in physical form.
Wow.
Yeah. And there are 7 archangels in the world today. I have been one of them, my friend Hano, but I also know where the rest are. I've met the rest, and my job was in meeting them, in connecting with them, is to tell them what they are,
Yeah.
and what their job is in this world.
That's incredible. Jesus, right? What did he look like in the flesh?
In the flesh, he was about 5'9". He had like he had dark brown hair. It wasn't black, it was dark brown. He had brown eyes. He had kind of a lighter olive complexion. He was very lean. He was not heavy. He was like wiry, like somebody would describe somebody as being wiry.
Right.
That's how he showed himself to me. One of his pet peeves is, he says, I don't understand why humans focus on how I died. He says, that's not what I want. He says, I want people to focus on how I lived and what I taught, not my death.
Right.
My death was inevitable, he says. I knew very few angels that incarnate know who and what they are.
Sure.
It usually comes to them later. But I was born knowing what I was. And Jesus was born knowing what he was, who he was, and his death.
Right.
I mean, I know when I'm going to die, and I know how I'm going to die. So I don't have any fear of dying. But it's very rare do you get that. But see, he knew. He had that innate knowledge. This is what I'm here for. This is my job. This is how it's going to end.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. I'm throwing a lot of these heavy questions out, and I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Is Jesus the Son of God?
He is.
Excellent.
He is.
Excellent. Yeah. I've been debating while you've been talking. I've been debating whether I want to ask a certain question, because I don't want to offend a certain type of people, in their belief systems, and
right.
mainly is Islam.
Yeah.
Because their main, Muhammad was connected with Gabriel, and that's usually who is mentioned in the Quran. Is there
Jesus was reincarnated as Buddha. Jesus was reincarnated as their prophet Muhammad as
excellent.
well.
Yeah, excellent.
So that's there you go.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because I've read the Quran a couple times, and I always wanted, because everyone's always fighting each other.
Yeah, and people just learn that it's like just as long as you believe in God, what does it matter?
Right.
You believe in the higher power. You don't have to give it a name. I mean, it's the God consciousness, the greater consciousness, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Everybody has a different name for it. But I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I'm good with that. I'm like, okay, if you could see what I see, you would understand.
Yeah. Because like when God's talking to Moses, right? And I'm going to use just later day vocabulary. So God comes down to Moses, hey Moses, hey, I need you to go into Egypt, and then of course I don't want to do that. I don't want to. No,
exactly,
yeah. So Moses asks a very interesting question. Who should I say has sent me, right? Because I don't know your name, and who should I say? And
I am that I am.
Right. And that's the coolest response, because how can finite really know the infinite, right? Who do you say? Of course you say I am,
Yeah, and even to this day, if you asked him, he says, I am that I am.
Yeah.
I mean, we have long talks, and I'm like, when I first started talking to him, when I was a kid, it's like, what's your name? You're a kid. You're like, what's your name?
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, I am that I am.
Yeah.
And I told my grandma, I said, Grandma, I said, God's name is I am. Grandma's like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah. What an interesting thing to be a part of a line that goes back that you were born and you were made for a purpose.
Yeah.
How have you been able to first of all that weight on your shoulders? Because I mean most people would like, oh boy, I don't know if I can do this.
It's like it's because Michael did the merge.
Yeah.
It made it as common as an everyday thing.
Gotcha.
I don't question it. I don't complain about it. Oh, once in a while I complain.
Right.
But for the most part I don't complain about it. I just do the work, put your head down, do the work,
Right.
get it done. And then you have the satisfaction of helping these people.
Yeah. Now we've talked about, of course, Lucifer, and we've talked about Jesus. Let's talk about the big guy for a minute.
Oh, yeah. That's why I call him the big guy.
The big guy.
Yeah.
How,
to see him is to, because I've seen him, it's like pure energy. It's so, if you were a human and you were looking at him, you couldn't look at him.
Sure.
The brilliance is so, it's so overwhelming. It's so bright. It'd be like looking into, a million lasers, and it's just that way. But when I travel to the other side, see, Ariel exists in a different dimension, and that's how when I'm killing a demon, I go to that dimension, and I go with her and become her in that dimension. So it enables me to see, hear, and feel everything that goes on between her and the demon, and when she kills it.
Right.
And so when I talk to God, it's the same way. I am her and she is me. So my consciousness goes with her, and we have long conversations with God. There is a place called No Man's Land up there. That's what I call it, No Man's Land. It's a place where you can go, and it's like a neutral ground. So whenever I've had to speak with Lucifer outside of the usual, I can basically just pull him from wherever he is into No Man's Land, and he can't stop it, and talk to him. And you're like, you're screwing up, you've got to do something about your second in command or whatever, and if you don't do it, I'll come down and do it. So we have these come to God meetings, so to speak.
Right, when everyone calls, come to Jesus, but this
Yeah,
is the come to the big guy meeting.
Come to the big guy meeting, and he knows everything that's going on.
Sure.
It's just that it'd be like knowing everything in the house that goes on, but you don't have, but you don't see it in detail.
Right.
You know what's happening, but you don't see it in stark detail.
Right. Right.
You get the impression of, well, this is happening or that's happening.
Right.
Rather than being able to see the exact instance or whatever, detail. I eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or whatever, and had a glass of milk. He knows that you had something to eat, and that's it. So you don't need to see anything else. People don't understand that he does know what's going on, but the thing is, he has eyes and ears everywhere, and it's not that he's like watching you 24/7. No. The angels, they're warrior angels, and what I call the common angels, and they keep track of things. They keep track of the light workers. They monitor them. If they need help, they will get them help, that sort of thing.
Awesome. Yeah. So if I guess I'm going to term common angels, but and God's not watching. What's God doing?
He's oversees it all, and he's keeping Some of it is we've had a long talk about the earth and the dark ones. And a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, he says, over the next 10 years, he says, I'm taking the earth back. He says, the dark ones have had it for too long. He says, it's time to take it back.
Yeah.
And you're going to help me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm one person here. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But he's like, no. He's like, there's, all of the archangels. Why do you think he sent down over 300,000 of the warrior angels into physical form?
Yeah.
They are here to do the job. They're here to do the work. They are the light workers.
Ooh, man. So,
and there are over 3 million of warrior angels in spirit walking the earth.
Yeah, that would blow people's minds, But I'm really glad you brought that up, because the more information, the better.
Yeah. People need to understand that he does hear you.
Yeah.
He does care. It's like, just because you can't see what he's doing doesn't mean he's not doing it.
Right.
And I've in the last couple of years, I've helped over 3,000 warrior angels understand who and what they are, and give them their angelic name, because it's only given once.
Yeah.
And set them on the track that they're supposed to be on, if they're not already on it.
Right. Hey, June, how accurate is the Bible? I mean,
I thought it was funny. It's like, it'd be like you writing a book about your when you were 20 years old and you're 90.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The books were written after the fact, after Jesus left.
Sure.
So they're doing it from memory. They're trying to get it down from memory.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked God about it one time. He says, and Jesus says, well, I said, what's up with the Bible? I said, a lot of people take it as, this is the end all be all, and this is the way it's the letter of the law, so to speak. And God and Jesus both say that's not what it was meant for. It was meant for as a guideline to help man to understand.
Yeah.
He says, you have the Old Testament. It was created for the people of that time. He said, and when Jesus came down, the New Testament was created for the people of that time.
Yeah.
But Jesus is coming back again.
Right.
In the next 5 years. So
hold on.
Yeah, Matthew and Andrew are already here preparing the way.
Really?
Oh yeah, they've been reborn
within the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it is a coming to Jesus moment.
Yeah, he said it's time for me to return.
Yeah.
And to write a third book. He said, because I need to experience the world as it is now.
Yeah.
And to create a book for the people of this era.
Gotcha. Hey, let's move track a little bit. Let's pivot, shall we say?
Okay.
And let's talk about the ghostly world. Okay. What are ghosts?
Ghosts are, what happens is when you die, your soul is released from the physical body. Mm-hmm. And if you do not ascend completely to the light, if you stay, like say, there's a husband, I want to wait for my wife. He dies, I want to wait for my wife. So he will stay in the physical world and wait for her. He can walk through the physical world without being seen if he chose to, or to be seen if he chose to. So basically it's your soul down here, that's staying put, helping. Or if you die traumatically, a lot of times if you die violently or traumatically, then suddenly if you don't go into the light when it's projected, like say you die and you don't see the light, then you remain here in the physical world, and you're stuck in, a lot of them are stuck in that moment, the moment of their death, which is not a good thing. You relive it over and over again. Or you're stuck with, I was called into a case up in LeGrand, and this couple had the house. He says, there's creaking going on. He says, there's things that are moved. We need to know what's going on. There's footsteps. So the minute I hit the driveway, I knew what was there. So I went into the house and went straight to this recliner that was in the living room. And I sat down, and there was a gentleman sitting there. And we talked for a while. I always communicate telepathically. And he said that he had a heart attack. He died. And then he went into what I would, if you were in a physical body, I would say you went into shock. You pass out, and then you wake up, everything goes black, and then you wake up. Well, that's basically what happened to him. He was in kind of a shock. And when he woke up, his son and daughter-in-law were there, and they were talking about selling the house or renting the house.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm here. And then he realized that they couldn't hear him.
Yeah.
That they couldn't see him.
Yeah.
And so he realized he was dead, but he didn't know how to get to the light.
Right.
So I told him, I said, you can go to the light. He said, there were a lot of people that rented this house that didn't take care of it. Me and my wife took care of this house. He said, there was a lot of people that didn't. I said, well, what about the couple that's here now? He says, yes, they have respect for the house. They keep it up. They keep up the garden and everything. And I said, well, then you need to go. I said, because they're taking care of it. It's well taken care of. I said, you can't live here anymore. I said, you have to go be with your wife and your parents. And I summoned his wife, and she came to the opening. I can create a white light portal for him. So I created it. And his wife was standing at the opening saying, come on, Larry, come on. I'm like, I said, yeah, run, do not walk.
Right.
And so he left. But if he didn't know he's dead, and he'd know how to get to the light.
Right.
Sometimes that happens as well.
For instance, when you were clinically dead for a couple minutes there, is there like the tunnel, the classic?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And my grandma, I saw the light, and I went into the light. It wasn't so much a tunnel as just like a round, like going into a mirror or something.
Right.
But it was all light, and my grandparents were there, and Michael was there and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of like that. I guess each person would see it a little bit differently, but they told me right away, this is not your time.
Right.
You need to go back.
Right.
You got plenty of work to do. So I'm like,
June,
that figures.
June, I wish everyone could talk to you, because talking to you, it makes me not apprehensive about dying.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Because we're always hardwired,
well, it's the fear. It's the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
But I've been there, done that. It's like, it doesn't bother me.
Right.
I know when my time is up, and I'll be glad to go, I'm sure, at that time. 93 years old. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Hey, is there some ghosts that don't know they're dead?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them that you'll find that in a lot of historical buildings. Gettysburg's a fine example of it. They're still fighting the war. They're still, you'll see them in these houses, and they're haunted because some ghosts move on, and they can see the passage of time, but other ghosts become stuck in their time period. So I don't care if this house was built in 1755 and it's 2020 and you've remodeled it. Okay, they'll make no difference, because they only ever see it as it was in 1755.
Yeah.
They do not see it as it is now. So that's why if you tear down a wall or put in a door, they'll walk right straight through it.
Right.
Because that's not how they see it.
Is it like for them, is it like a time loop? I mean, forever fighting?
No, some of them are. Some of them are like forever doing what they were doing when they died. Yeah. Others are just going about their daily, business, like it's every day, and it's like, oh, okay, I need to do the laundry today, I need to cook some dinner, that sort of thing, and they go about their business, and without noticing anyone or anything. They may not, and then 9 times out of 10 they won't even notice the living. But if you come across one that that can interact, They choose to interact. They either choose to interact or not. It's entirely up to them. You cannot force them.
Gotcha.
But if they don't ascend and they still stay in their physical world brain, so to speak, then if they were nasty in death, nasty in life, they're going to be nasty in death.
Right. Right.
I've had to move on some that were that way. It's like, don't be an ass, because I'm going to move you. I'm going to move you on. Don't be doing that. I was called in there for a children's theater, and they were saying they saw this 7-foot shadow person, and he was scaring the kids, and they wanted it gone. So I went in there, and I'm like, really? I'm looking at him. I said, because he tried to make me see him as a shadow person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't pull that shit on me. I said, so this is a short, fat, balding dude who never got any respect in life, and he was sure as hell going to get respect in death by showing himself as a shadow person. I'm like, your ass is mine. You need to go. You need to go.
Stop.
So I sent him home.
Yeah.
It's like, give me a break.
That's great.
Well, I had this guy down when I was in Astoria doing the ghost adventure one, and we went into this bar that is haunted, and I was talking to the ghost there, and they thought he was a ship captain, but he wasn't. He was just one of the crew members. He's like, I said, "Oh, so you're the ghost?" He says, "No, I'm not a ghost. I'm a displaced individual." I'm like, okay, that's the first time I've had that one. I like it. That's good.
Displaced individual.
Yeah.
That's kind of
like,
that is.
It is. I liked it. I thought, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. That's a good way of putting it.
Hey, do you mind if I use that?
Yeah. He's like, and my girlfriend's over there. And I saw, the other ghost was of a female.
Yeah.
And he says, I never did marry her. I should have married her. I'm like, yeah, you should have.
Man. Explain a little bit about the process of moving somebody to the light. Whether they put up a fight or
some will try to go kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if they're going kicking and screaming, it's because they're here in the physical world and they're causing problems. They're scaring people, they're harming people, scratching them, biting them, or whatever, or throwing things at them or whatever. And I don't put up with that. And I tell them, if you can change your ways, if you want to change, that's fine. You can stay. I said, but if you don't, I said, then you're going. And he's like, you can't make me go. I'm like, I look at him and smile. I'm like, yes, I can. And then Ariel comes forward and he's, and they're like, oh crap.
Right. Yeah.
Because they know who she is. So they're fearful. So she just she puts them in an infinity orb, which is like, it's like remember when you're a kid and you have those big wands that you blow the bubbles with, and they make these really big balls of bubbles,
Yeah.
So you create an infinity orb out of pure white light energy, and you put them inside it, and you send it up to the light, and they go whether they want to or not.
Yeah. Have you ever met any famous entities, ones that just haven't crossed over yet?
Yeah, I've met Michael Jackson when
Really?
he left. Yeah, I met Michael Jackson when he left, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And who else did I meet? I met Mae West. I met Marlena Dietrich.
Yeah.
People like that, interesting ones, because all you have to do is think of them, and they come and visit. Yeah, they'll come and visit.
Let's talk about Michael for a moment. One, does he know that he's passed away?
Oh yeah, he knows.
Is there a reason why he hasn't moved over?
Oh, he's moved over, but I visited with him when he was on his way.
Okay.
And Prince was another one I visited with. And I'm like, really, Prince? Yeah. He says, I knew how my death would take place. He said, I would die in the elevator. If you listen to the lyrics of the song, Let's Go Crazy, push the elevator, push the button in the elevator, go to a higher floor.
Yeah.
So he knew how he was going to die.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, June, the life you lead.
Yeah. It's
It's
never a
great.
dull moment. I told
Yeah.
my husband, I said, listen, it's never going to be boring, dear. What can I say?
Right, buckle up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the consultant work that you do, because that's
Well, usually it's people will contact me if they're having problems with a negative entity that they can't get rid of, or it's too strong for them to handle. And then they'll connect with me. And really, all I need is I worked quite a bit with a couple of Canadian groups up in Canada, but they'll send me a picture of the location or the individual, and then I can do it remotely. I've removed them as far away as the Netherlands and Australia and China,
wow.
India.
You
Yeah, I
have
can do it remotely. It's not a big deal, you know.
um before I let you go, I gotta go 360 around and talk about the animal communication.
Oh yeah, I love the animals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always been so interested because I have a German Shepherd, okay, and he is smart.
Oh yeah.
I've often thought that he is two opposable thumbs away from ruling the world,
That's
right?
because he was a human in his last lifetime.
So people, entities
They
can be human.
Yeah,
I mean,
people can come back as animals, fish, or a person. Maybe they got tired of being a person and it wasn't so cool, so they decided to come back as a dog or whatever.
yeah,
You know, like right now I have a Springer puppy that's 7 months old, and
yeah.
I lost my Springer a year ago, August,
Uh,
and she was 15. And she says, "I'm coming back, Mom, don't worry." So I found her again. This is her fourth incarnation with me.
oh
And
wow,
she's always come back as a Springer. And
yeah,
I always know where she is. I always find her.
yeah,
And then, you know, and I hear animals, I communicate with animals like I communicate with people. It's a regular conversation. You know, I don't, some people get like emotions, some people get pictures, some people get movies, feelings, whatever.
mhm.
I just get a full on conversation. And once they get over the fact that they can understand me and hear me, then it's like, then it's on. Like, I need more beef and I'm tired of sleeping on the sofa, you know.
Right. I had our family here. We had a Springer for about 13 years. I love
Mhm.
Springers. One
Oh
day I
yeah.
will get myself a new Springer.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but I've often wondered what what humans, what animals think of humans. You know,
Oh, it depends. You know, it's if they're with you for any length of time. Like my first Springer was Susie, and she had been with me in other lifetimes.
mm,
So it's not like you know, we weren't together before.
mhm,
But you know, it's like it's all about finding each other in this lifetime,
mhm,
and then having, you know, being taken care of, and you know, it's a two-way street. You take care of them, they take care of you.
right.
They give you all the love in the world, you know. And when she decided to come back again, I was happy. You know, she came back as my Springer babe. Then she came back as Sarah. Now she's back as Cleo.
Oh, that's awesome.
And my two Dobermans are back as my pit bulls.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always because people, oh, one of the eternal questions, do pets live on, or is that the
Oh yeah.
finite?
Yeah.
And I've always thought, yeah,
Yeah.
I believe that. I mean, because they're so sentient,
Oh yeah.
that
They are closer to God than we are,
oh, I
because
bet.
they don't have the baggage we got. Look at us. We bring when we die, we like fight it tooth and nail because we got all this baggage, we got all these hangups, and
Yeah,
they're like, "I'm out of here." They go to
right,
the other side. You know,
right.
it's not a
Uh,
big deal.
so you can come back as many times as you want, or is
Mhm.
there a
Oh
time
yeah, no,
like it with Buddha? You've reached nirvana. You're pretty
yeah,
complete.
no,
No.
yeah, no. You can come back as many times as you want, and it's up to you whether you choose to or not. If you
Yeah.
want to stay on the other side, you stay on the other side. It's not a
Okay.
big deal.
Gotcha.
You know?
Um,
Yeah.
in some of your past lives, have you been famous, or B, have you been around somebody who's been famous?
More like infamous.
In right, right.
None of my lifetimes before this one have ended well. I've been
Oh
burned
boy.
at the stake. I've been hung. I've been strangled. You know, little things like that. They've not ended well.
Oh,
But, you know, this is the first lifetime when I'm actually going to go to sleep and not wake up.
very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I would probably be the same way. I'd be, all right, I've been strangled and everything. Can I just die in my sleep?
I'm tired of that crap. You know, just give me a decent death this time, you know?
Right. So I mean, I love the animal communication, and that really kind of jives with you know, Native American lore, you know, of having spirit
Yeah.
animals and spirit totems. It makes total sense.
My grandmother was Cherokee and Apache Indian, so
Excellent.
as well as Irish. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always had an affinity too with Native American sort of mythos and belief systems, because I mean, even before, you know, us Europeans showed up, right?
Yeah.
They always called the Great Spirit.
Right. It's the
They
same
intuit-
thing. Yeah.
right.
They know. Yeah. Because they're closer to the land. They're closer to the earth.
Right.
You know, they're more spiritual bound.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, most
I
definitely.
know one of my past lives I was a shaman in training, and it was back in the Cherokee Nation, and my name was Princess Flower, and I died rescuing children from a flood.
Uh-huh.
So but I drowned. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, you're doing something noble, you know.
Yeah.
That's incredible. June, thank you so much. I always love talking to you, and I still got a billion questions left, but we're gonna save that for another time.
Next time. Yeah, next time.
But yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always good to talk to you.
That was June Lundgren, Demon Seer. Hey, check her out on her Facebook page and her webpage. Check out her books and check her out her appearances on TV and radio. All right, guys, we have some exciting new news. We will be live streaming on YouTube soon, so check that out. It should be great. We're going to also do some live radio shows, right? I got a streaming server all ready to go, and we're going to do the midnight in Midnight Alchemy. Also, listen, guys, we have our voicemail. It's 971-205-2464. Leave a message. Tell us how we're doing. Guest ideas. Maybe you want to be a guest, and just, you know, do everything except for calling me a dork. That would be much appreciated. Hey, you can also email us at midnightalchemyshow@gmail.com, midnightalchemyshow@gmail.com. All right, all you alchemists, I'm gonna run off into the sunset, and I will see you next time here on Midnight Alchemy, a Reaver Dare show.